Welcome to Echoes of Ihsan. We're going deep today into some excerpts from Sahih Muslim Hadith, Book 30,
Okay.
the excellent qualities of the Holy Prophet, pbuh, and his companions.
Yeah.
These hadiths are narrations about the Prophet Muhammad's words and actions, and they offer such a fascinating glimpse into his character and his teachings.
Absolutely.
And really the world he lived in.
It's like stepping back in time, getting a firsthand account of what it was like to be in the presence of the Prophet.
Yeah.
These stories aren't just historical anecdotes, they're rich with spiritual insights and ethical guidance that continues to resonate with Muslims today.
Absolutely. And one of the first things that struck me was this whole idea that Prophet's eminence.
Oh.
There's a hadith stating that he'll hold the highest position among all of humanity on the day of resurrection.
Oh, wow.
It's like he's not just a prophet, but also this incredibly important figure on a cosmic scale.
Absolutely. It's important to remember that in Islam, the day of resurrection isn't just about judgment.
Okay.
It's also about witnessing the culmination of God's plan for humanity.
Right.
And the Prophet's elevated position really speaks to his pivotal role in that plan.
And it's not just about status either,
Right.
The hadith specifically mentions that he'll be the first to intercede with God.
Right.
And his intercession will be accepted.
Oh, wow.
So it's like his closeness to God allows him to plead on behalf of humanity.
Yes.
And that's a pretty powerful concept.
Exactly. And it's a testament to his compassion, his love for humanity, that he would use that position to advocate for us on that momentous day. This concept of intercession is really important in Islamic theology, reflecting God's mercy and the Prophet's role as a guide and intercessor for his followers.
You know what else is really interesting?
What's that?
Even before his prophethood, a stone in Mecca used to greet him. Yeah, like the world itself was acknowledging his significance.
Wow, that's amazing. That story really captures the sense of awe and wonder that surrounded the Prophet.
Yeah.
Even before he received his first revelation.
Right.
It speaks to the idea that his destiny was, in a sense, preordained.
Yeah.
And that even inanimate objects bore witness to his special status.
Then we get into these accounts of miracles and blessings.
Okay.
And honestly, some of them are just mind-blowing.
Like what?
Like the one where he performs ablution with a limited amount of water.
Oh, yeah.
He puts his hand into the vessel.
Right.
And suddenly water starts gushing from his fingers.
This miracle of the water gushing from his fingers, it's so powerful because it directly addresses a basic human need.
Right.
The need for clean water, essential for ritual purification.
Yeah.
It's not just a spectacular display of power.
Yeah.
It's a demonstration of God's mercy and provision made manifest through the Prophet.
And it's not just a trickle either.
Right.
The hadith says that enough water flowed for between 50 and 300 companions
Wow.
to perform ablution.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, it highlights the Prophet's role as a source of blessing, not just for himself, but for the entire community.
The wide range in the number of people who benefited from this miracle is interesting, isn't it?
It is.
It suggests that the abundance provided was tailored to the needs of the community at that particular moment.
Yeah.
And it reinforces the idea that the Prophet's miracles were always meant to serve a practical purpose, often addressing the immediate needs of his followers.
Then there's the story of Malik and the clarified butter.
Okay.
She sends it to the Prophet, pbuh, and her sons keep eating it.
Yeah.
But it never runs out.
Oh, wow.
It's like this endless supply of food, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
When you think about the harsh conditions of the desert environment.
This story, like the miracle of the water, emphasizes the theme of provision and sustenance. It highlights the baraka, the blessings associated with the Prophet, which extended even to everyday items like food.
And it's not until the recipient weighs the butter that the blessing seems to lift.
Oh, really?
It's as if quantifying the miracle somehow disrupted the flow of divine grace.
That detail about the weighing is fascinating because it suggests that there are limits to how we as humans can comprehend or quantify divine blessings. It's a reminder that sometimes we have to simply trust in God's abundance without needing to measure or analyze it.
Okay, this next part is where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm ready.
The stories about the Prophet's Binar Connect.
Yeah, okay.
There's one where a man approaches him while he's sleeping and grabs his sword.
Oh, my God.
It's like a scene straight out of a movie.
It's a heart-stopping moment, right?
Yeah.
It speaks to the very real dangers the Prophet faced, even in moments of vulnerability.
Right.
But what's even more remarkable is his reaction.
Right.
He doesn't panic or fight back.
Yeah.
He simply declares Allah as his protector twice.
Yeah.
And the man inexplicably sheaths the sword.
It's like a powerful affirmation of faith.
Absolutely.
A testament to his unwavering trust in God's protection.
Right.
Even in the face of imminent danger.
And it's not an isolated incident either.
No, not at all.
During an expedition towards Najd, another man tries to approach the Prophet at night with the intention of harming him.
Yeah.
And even though the man was incredibly close to the Prophet, he simply couldn't find him.
It's like he was rendered invisible by divine intervention.
These accounts of protection are incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Because they illustrate the belief that the Prophet was constantly under God's watchful care.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, even when surrounded by enemies, those who put their trust in God will be protected.
And it's not just about physical protection either. It's also about spiritual and emotional protection.
Yeah.
The sense of peace and security that comes from knowing that you're guided and guarded by a higher power.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's powerful.
It is.
You know, it's amazing how these stories of protection intertwine with the Prophet's reliance on divine guidance.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, you see, it wasn't just about physical safety, but about navigating the complexities of establishing a new faith and community.
Yeah.
He was constantly seeking God's wisdom in every decision he made.
That's such a good point.
You know, it wasn't just about surviving threats.
Right.
It was about building something entirely new, and that takes immense courage and faith.
Absolutely.
Speaking of faith, the Prophet was a master storyteller, using parables to make complex spiritual concepts accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
He often compared understanding and applying religious knowledge to fertile land that thrives with rain, producing abundant vegetation.
That's such a vivid image. It's like religious knowledge is the rain that nourishes the soul.
Yes.
Allowing it to blossom and bear fruit.
And it's not just about passively absorbing information.
Right.
It's about putting that knowledge into action.
Okay.
Just as a farmer would cultivate the land to produce crops.
I see. So it's about living out your faith in a way that benefits yourself and those around you.
Precisely.
But what about those who neglect religious knowledge?
That's where the contrast comes in.
Okay.
He compared them to barren land, unable to retain water or support life.
Right. It's a stark contrast, highlighting the consequences of ignoring God's guidance.
It's interesting how he uses these natural metaphors to illustrate spiritual truths.
It is, yeah.
Just as a barren land is hard and unyielding, a heart devoid of spiritual nourishment becomes hardened and incapable of growth.
It's a reminder that we need to constantly nourish our souls with knowledge and good deeds.
Yes.
Just as we nourish our bodies with food and water.
Exactly.
I noticed he often drew a direct connection between obedience and spiritual fruitfulness.
Oh, absolutely.
There's that powerful image where he compares those who obey him to fertile land.
Yes.
And those who disobey him to barren land.
This really emphasizes the Islamic emphasis on following the Prophet's example.
Yeah.
Not just in matters of ritual, but also in character and conduct.
Right. It's about aligning your life with God's will as revealed through his messenger.
Exactly.
It's about striving to embody the values he exemplified.
Yes.
Compassion, justice, humility, and unwavering faith.
There's also that striking analogy of a fire.
Oh, right. The fire.
He describes himself as someone warning people not to fall in, but they jump in anyway.
Yeah, it's like a cautionary tale about the consequences of ignoring divine guidance.
This analogy is so powerful because it speaks to the human tendency to disregard warnings.
Right.
Even when they come from a trusted source.
Yeah.
It reminds us that the Prophet, pbuh, was sent as a warner, guiding people away from harm.
Right.
And those who choose to ignore his message do so at their own peril.
It's a timeless reminder of the importance of heeding wise counsel.
Absolutely.
And recognizing the potential consequences of our choices.
The Hadith about the finality of prophethood really resonated with me.
Yeah, what about it?
It's where he uses the analogy of a beautifully constructed building that's missing a single brick.
Right.
Everyone admires the building, but they can't help but notice its incompleteness.
It's a brilliant metaphor.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it conveys the idea that previous prophets laid the foundation of God's message.
Yes.
Each contributing to the structure of faith.
Right.
And Muhammad was that final essential piece.
And he says, I am that brick.
It so beautifully encapsulates his role as the seal of the prophets.
This concept of finality is central to Islamic belief.
Right.
Highlighting that Muhammad, pbuh, brought the complete and final revelation from God, and there will be no prophet after him.
This belief doesn't diminish the importance of previous prophets.
Not at all.
It simply means that their messages, while true for their time, were part of a larger, unfolding revelation that culminated with the Prophet Muhammad.
He brought the final universal message intended for all of humanity.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Hadith.
Okay.
The Prophet's cistern in the afterlife.
Right.
The Hadiths describe this breathtaking scene.
Oh, I love this part.
A vast reservoir with water whiter than milk and sweeter than honey.
Think about it. A cistern so immense that the distance between its edges is compared to the distance between Sana'a in Yemen and Medina in Saudi Arabia.
It's meant to evoke a sense of awe and wonder at the scale of God's blessings in the hereafter.
Absolutely. And the cups?
Yes, the cups.
Countless, like the stars in the sky. Yeah. It's like this incredible image of abundance, an endless supply of refreshment for those who have earned their place in paradise.
It is, yeah.
These descriptions are intended to inspire not just a longing for the blessings of paradise, but also a deeper understanding of God's generosity. It speaks to the immeasurable rewards that await those who endure hardship and remain steadfast in their faith in this life.
Yeah, it's a reminder that the trials of this world are temporary.
Right.
And the rewards of the hereafter are eternal.
But here's what really struck me.
What's that?
The Prophet possesses concern that some of his followers might be turned away from the cistern.
Really?
Despite being expected there.
You would think that those who believed in him and followed his teachings would be guaranteed a place at the Hadith.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So why would anyone be turned away? He seemed worried about the actions of his followers after his passing.
Right.
That some might stray from the path.
I think it underscores the importance of not just believing in the Prophet, but also embodying his teachings. It's a call to action.
Yeah.
A reminder that faith without deeds is incomplete.
Right.
It emphasizes personal responsibility and accountability, reminding us that our actions in this life have consequences in the next.
It's a potent reminder that preserving the Prophet's teachings and striving for righteousness is an ongoing process.
Absolutely.
Even after he's gone. It's a message that resonates through the centuries, urging us to constantly examine our actions and intentions in light of his guidance.
It's also a reminder that we should never become complacent in our faith.
Okay.
We should constantly strive to deepen our understanding, purify our hearts, and act in a way that honors the Prophet's legacy.
Speaking of the Prophet's followers, it's incredible to think that angels fought alongside him.
I know.
One hadith describes Gabriel and Michael fighting fiercely by his side during the Battle of Uhud.
Wow, it's like something out of a mythical epic.
This account, witnessed by one of his companions, really highlights the divine support the Prophet received in his mission.
Yes, it's a powerful affirmation of his prophethood.
Right.
And the legitimacy of his cause.
It's a reminder that he wasn't fighting for personal power or glory,
right,
but for the establishment of God's will on earth.
It also speaks to the Islamic understanding of angels as beings created by God to carry out his commands. They are not divine themselves, but they serve as messengers, guardians, and warriors in the service of the Almighty.
It also reminds us that the struggle for truth and justice is not always easy.
Right.
And that sometimes divine intervention is necessary to overcome overwhelming odds.
Absolutely.
This episode is really making me reflect on the battles we face in our own lives.
I agree.
Even if they're not literal battles.
Right.
We all struggle with our own inner demons and external challenges.
Absolutely.
I think this hadith offers a powerful message of hope.
It does.
It reminds us that even in the face of adversity, we are not alone. If we remain steadfast in our faith and strive to do what's right,
yes,
we can draw strength and support from a power greater than ourselves.
That's a powerful message.
It is. From miracles and battles to those incredible stories of divine protection, these hadiths paint such a vivid picture of the Prophet's life.
They really do.
What really stands out to you about his character and conduct?
That's a great question.
We've talked about his compassion.
Right.
But what else resonates with you?
Well, one thing that consistently shines through is his gentleness.
Oh, yeah.
And patience. He was known for his humility and kindness.
Okay.
And just unwavering integrity.
It's like he truly embodied the values he preached.
Exactly.
It wasn't just about words. It was about living those principles every single day.
Precisely. He was a living example of Islamic ethics.
There's that moving story about his servant, Anas bin Malik.
Oh, yes.
Who served him for 10 years.
Right.
Can you imagine serving someone for 10 years and never once being spoken to harshly or reprimanded?
10 years.
10 years.
That's incredible.
It really speaks to the depth of his compassion and his commitment to treating everyone with respect.
Absolutely.
Regardless of their social standing.
It challenges that common misconception that people in positions of authority, especially in those times, were somehow distant or aloof.
Right.
The Prophet treated everyone with dignity and kindness, whether they were family companions or even those who served him in his household.
And his generosity was legendary.
Oh, absolutely. Especially during Ramadan.
Yeah, when he was said to give like the blowing wind.
Like the blowing wind? Wow.
It's like his spirit of giving was amplified during that holy month.
There's a beautiful detail here that I find particularly moving.
Okay, with it.
The angel Gabriel would visit him every night during Ramadan to review the Quran.
Oh, wow.
And it was during these visits, as if inspired by the divine presence, that the Prophet's generosity would reach its peak.
It's like he was so filled with the spirit of the Quran, the spirit of giving and compassion, that it overflowed into every aspect of his life.
And it wasn't just material wealth that he shared so freely.
What else?
It was his time, his knowledge, his wisdom.
Right.
He never refused anyone who asked for something in the name of Islam.
Wow.
Whether it was a simple request for help or a complex question about faith.
It's important to remember that this generosity wasn't just about grand gestures either.
Oh, absolutely.
He was known for simple acts of kindness.
Like what?
Like patting children on the cheek. And making sure travelers weren't driving camels too roughly.
Right.
Especially if women were riding.
That hadith where he compares women riding camels to fragile glass vessels is so striking.
I know.
It speaks to his sensitivity and his deep concern for their well-being.
Yeah.
Recognizing their vulnerability, especially during travel.
It's a reminder that true compassion extends to all beings.
Absolutely.
Even animals.
Yes.
And that we should treat them with care and respect.
There's another story that really highlights his humility and willingness to serve others, even those who might be considered on the margins of society.
Tell me more.
It's the story of the woman with mental health challenges.
Oh, yes. The one where he actually stood by the roadside to address her needs.
Exactly.
He didn't shy away from her or dismiss her as someone to be avoided.
He recognized her humanity, her inherent worth.
Right.
And he took the time to listen to her and offer whatever assistance he could.
It's a powerful lesson in empathy and compassion.
It is.
A reminder that we should never turn our backs on those who are struggling.
Right.
Regardless of their circumstances.
These stories about his family life are so touching.
I agree.
The one about his son, Ibrahim, really tugged at my heartstrings.
Yeah, he was sent to live with a blacksmith in Medina.
Right.
And the Prophet, pbuh, would regularly visit him, showing such tenderness and affection.
It's a beautiful glimpse into the Prophet's proper paternal love.
It is.
And it humanizes him, you know? Yeah.
It shows that even prophets, those closest to God, experience the full spectrum of human emotions.
When Ibrahim passed away as an infant, the Prophet wept openly.
It's a reminder that grief is a universal human experience.
It is.
Even for those who have attained the highest levels of spiritual enlightenment.
It shows that vulnerability and emotional expression are not weaknesses.
Right.
But essential parts of what it means to be human.
And the Prophet's willingness to show his grief openly serves as a model for us.
Right.
Encouraging us to acknowledge and process our own emotions in a healthy way.
His compassion wasn't limited to his own family either.
No, not going.
He would kiss children.
Oh, I love that story.
Which was apparently unusual for some Arab tribes at the time.
It was.
This simple act of affection was revolutionary in a culture that often viewed children as less than fully formed individuals.
It was.
The Prophet recognized their inherent worth, their purity and innocence.
Right.
And he treated them with love and respect. And he didn't just model that behavior.
Right.
He explicitly taught it.
He emphasized showing mercy to children,
Right.
even warning that those who don't show mercy to them wouldn't receive mercy themselves.
It's a stark reminder that our treatment of the most vulnerable members of society reflects our own character and our relationship with God.
These teachings are even more poignant in today's world.
And they are.
Where we see so much violence and neglect directed towards children.
Absolutely. It's a timeless message calling on us to protect and nurture those who are most dependent on us.
So we've talked about his character, but what about his physical attributes? How was the prophet described in the Hadiths?
He's often described as being neither excessively tall nor short, with broad shoulders and hair that reached his earlobes. But what's interesting is that these descriptions often go beyond mere physical appearance.
I noticed that too. Yeah, it's like the focus is more on his presence, his aura, rather than just listing off physical features.
Exactly. They emphasize his inner beauty, his noble character, which was said to radiate outwards. He's described as having the most handsome face and the best character, suggesting that his inner goodness was reflected in his outward appearance.
There's that detail about his sweat that always stands out. It's described as having this incredible fragrance, so much so that a companion, Sulam, collected it to use as perfume.
That's such a unique detail, isn't it? It's almost like a tangible manifestation of his inner purity and the blessings associated with him. It speaks to the idea that his very presence was a source of beauty and goodness.
It's also mentioned that he had very little white hair, mostly concentrated on his chin and temples.
This is often seen as a sign of his youthful vigor even as he aged, and perhaps a subtle reminder of the timelessness of his message.
And then there's the seal of prophethood, this mark located between his shoulders.
This mark, often described as being the size of a pigeon's egg and resembling moles, was considered a physical manifestation of his prophetic status, a sign for those who encountered him.
It's like a physical confirmation of his role as God's final messenger.
And it served as a visual reminder for those who met him that they were in the presence of someone truly extraordinary.
Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the timeline of his life and prophethood. He received his first revelation at the age of 40 and passed away at the age of 63.
It's a relatively short but incredibly impactful period. In those 23 years, he transformed the Arabian Peninsula and set in motion a global religious movement that continues to this day.
Those 23 years encompass so much history. He lived in Mecca for 13 years after becoming a prophet, facing persecution and hardship as he spread his message. And then he migrated to Medina, where he established the first Muslim community and lived for another 10 years.
Those two cities, Mecca and Medina, are pivotal in Islamic history. Mecca, his birthplace, is the holiest city in Islam, the site of the Kaaba, which Muslims face in prayer, and Medina represents the beginning of a new era, the establishment of a community based on the principles of Islam.
It's amazing to think about the challenges he overcame and the legacy he left behind in such a relatively short amount of time.
It speaks to the power of his message, his unwavering faith, and his ability to inspire and unite people around a common purpose.
The Hadiths also stress the importance of respecting and following the prophets' pbuh teachings, even when we don't fully understand them.
Right. There's an emphasis on avoiding excessive questioning and accepting his guidance with humility, recognizing his superior knowledge and closeness to God. It's not about blind faith, but about recognizing that there are limits to our human understanding.
He often reminded his companions that he had the most knowledge of God and feared him the most. It wasn't about asserting his authority, but about guiding them towards a deeper understanding of the divine.
It's a reminder that our perspective is limited and that we should trust in the wisdom of those who are closer to the source of knowledge, in this case, God.
And when people questioned his decisions, he would gently remind them that he had a deeper understanding of God's will. It wasn't about silencing dissent, but about encouraging them to trust in the divine plan, even when it might not make immediate sense to them.
This emphasizes the importance of surrendering to divine wisdom, even when it challenges our own logic or preferences. It's about recognizing that God's plan is often beyond our comprehension, but that ultimately it is for our own good.
We can't forget about his many names and titles. Muhammad, Ahmad, Al-Mahi, Hashir, Aqib. Each one reflects a different aspect of his character and mission.
These names hold deep significance for Muslims. They serve as reminders of his prophetic role, his spiritual qualities, and his place in Islamic history.
He was also known as the Prophet of Repentance and the Prophet of Mercy, highlighting the central themes of his message.
These titles beautifully encapsulate the essence of Islam. It's about recognizing our imperfections, turning towards God in sincere repentance, and seeking His infinite mercy.
It's about acknowledging our need for forgiveness and striving to live a life of compassion and righteousness.
The Hadiths also touch on the merits of other prophets, showcasing the interconnectedness of their message and their shared mission to guide humanity towards God.
It's important to remember that Islam recognizes and reveres all prophets who came before Muhammad, seeing them as part of a continuous chain of divine revelation.
It's not about competition or hierarchy, but about recognizing the unity of God's message revealed through different messengers at different times in history.
There's a beautiful hadith that highlights the close relationship between the Prophet, pbuh, and Jesus, son of Mary. They're described as being closer than any other two people, both in this world and the next.
This is significant because it underscores the shared lineage of the Abrahamic faiths. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all trace their origins back to Abraham, and this hadith emphasizes the common ground between these traditions.
The Prophet, pbuh, also stated that all prophets share the same religion despite having different mothers, and that no prophet came between him and Jesus.
This statement clarifies the Islamic understanding of prophethood. Each prophet came with a message tailored to his specific time and people, but the core message was always the same: belief in one God and submission to His will.
And the Prophet Muhammad brought the final, complete version of this message meant for all of humanity until the end of time.
There's also that fascinating hadith where Satan touches every newborn child except for Jesus and his mother Mary.
It's an interesting exception highlighting the unique status of Jesus in both Christianity and Islam. It speaks to his miraculous birth and his role as a chosen messenger of God.
And it emphasizes the purity and sanctity of both Jesus and his mother Mary, figures who were deeply revered in both faiths.
The hadiths also offer glimpses into the lives of other prophets and their unique qualities.
We hear about Abraham, the friend of Allah, who is known for his unwavering faith and his willingness to sacrifice even his own son in obedience to God.
And then there's Moses, known for his modesty, his powerful encounters with God, and his leadership in guiding the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt.
And Jonah, who spent 3 days and nights in the belly of a whale as a consequence of his disobedience, only to emerge humbled and repentant, ultimately fulfilling his prophetic mission. God himself stated that no one should claim to be better than Jonah, a testament to his sincere repentance and his unwavering commitment to God, even in the face of immense hardship.
And who could forget Joseph, the one sold into slavery by his own brothers, only to rise to a position of power in Egypt, using his wisdom and compassion to save his family and his people from famine. He is mentioned as being worthy of respect due to his strong faith, enduring imprisonment and temptation while remaining steadfast in his belief. It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, faith and integrity can lead to triumph.
And finally, there's the enigmatic Khidr, who possessed knowledge beyond the ordinary knowledge of the unseen and the workings of divine destiny. His encounters with Moses are some of the most intriguing stories in the Quran, full of symbolism and spiritual lessons.
Moses, eager to learn from Khidr's wisdom, sets out on a journey with him. But Khidr's actions seem to defy logic, even appearing cruel or unjust. He sinks a boat, kills a young boy, and rebuilds a crumbling wall without asking for payment.
Moses, bound by his human understanding of justice and morality, questions Khidr's actions at every turn, but Khidr patiently explains that his actions, while seemingly harsh, serve a greater purpose that Moses cannot yet comprehend.
It's a profound lesson in trusting in God's wisdom, even when we don't understand his ways. It reminds us that our limited perspective can sometimes blind us to the bigger picture, the intricate workings of divine providence.
These stories of the prophets from Adam to Muhammad are not just historical accounts. They are timeless lessons in faith, perseverance, and submission to the divine will. They remind us that even the most righteous individuals face trials and tribulations, but they never lost sight of their ultimate purpose: to serve God and guide humanity towards the path of truth.
It's been an incredible journey exploring these excerpts from Sahih Muslim Book 30. These stories of the Prophet Muhammad, pbuh, and other prophets have offered glimpses into their lives, their characters, and their unwavering faith. What do you think? Has this deep dive given you any insights that potentially resonate with you?
For me, it's the reminder that spirituality isn't just about rituals and doctrines. It's about embodying compassion, justice, and humility in our everyday lives. It's about striving to be the best versions of ourselves, just as the Prophet exemplified in his interactions with others.
That's a beautiful takeaway, and I think it's something we can all strive for, regardless of our background or beliefs. We can all choose to be a little kinder, a little more patient, a little more generous in our interactions with the world.
And if you're intrigued by what we've discussed today, I encourage you to delve deeper into Sahih Muslim Book 30 and other collections of Hadith.
They offer a wealth of wisdom and guidance that can enrich our understanding of Islam and inspire us to live more meaningful and fulfilling lives.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking knowledge, and may peace be upon you